up, I was not an introvert at all. Can you believe it? Even though I was shy, I was very open to talk to people, and my friends would often ask me out to parties because I'm fun and sociable. Right now, if you were to ask me to party, I would ask who is there and what is the purpose of it? Because I'm only comfortable meeting new people if it aligns with my new identity, not the past version of myself. It's not that I'm uncomfortable with who I am, but it's more of whether I'm in a safe space to express myself. Of course, I'm still fun, but I can't truly be myself if I'm surrounded by strangers who just want to know what I do for a living. Honestly, it's very typical in Singapore to start a conversation based on what you do for work, instead of asking if you are really happy with your life or if you're becoming who you want to be. Small talk drains me like nothing else. It's exhausting. Of course, being on YouTube has forced me to step out of my comfort zone and express myself unapologetically, but it comes at a cost. The cost of losing my privacy. Trust me, it's an introvert's biggest nightmare to be out in the open because social media is definitely not a safe space for anyone. I've dealt with hate comments and criticisms about my videos, but I kept going because hatred is rarely personal. It is a projection of their own insecurities. Speaking of social media, Instagram is the only app I have and I use it to connect with my friends, but personally, I don't use it as much as YouTube. My daily screen time for Instagram is between 30 minutes to an hour, and I will spend most of my free time on YouTube instead to work on my personal development. I have zero interest in other people's lives. Most of the time, I don't really know what's going on until my friends update me in real life. Honestly, I can delete Instagram right now and it doesn't even bother me at all. It's very misleading to associate introverts with being a homebody who just scroll endlessly on social media all day due to our lack of social ability, but that's not true. In fact, I've been on YouTube for a year now and I didn't give myself the recognition I deserve until recently when I did a two-part episode about my childhood and upbringing. When I was writing the scripts, there was so much grief that it took me weeks of crying to release it. That was probably the hardest seasons of my life, and because of that, I have found my calling to help people to navigate their challenges and struggles in life by offering empathy and guidance in whichever way I can. But in order to do this, I have to be open about my past, how my childhood traumas have shaped me, how I found healing by looking within, and how to reset my identity after all that I've been through. The most amazing thing about being an introvert is that I can always find a way to entertain myself when I'm alone. Last year, I went to watch Beauty and the Beast musical by myself and I bumped into a friend who was surprised that I would do it alone. She said she could never do it and I finally understood why she could never be alone. She always needed someone to be with her all the time. Honestly, I feel sorry for people who have to rely on company to enjoy themselves and get whiny or irritated when no one wants to go out with them. These days, I will often be home alone deep in my thoughts or sitting quietly at the bar while my friends mingle with other people. Even though I do miss going for parties sometimes, I don't party for the sake of partying anymore, unless it's a friend's birthday, a farewell party, or an engagement party. Growing up, I've always been very intuitive, but I'm starting to realize that I'm also becoming hypersensitive to the energy around me. Here's the part that gets twisted. Being an introvert doesn't mean that you're shy or incapable of making conversations. If I want to, I can talk to anyone, but I choose not to. Occasionally, I do struggle with social anxiety because I get easily overwhelmed by a large group of people, but I've learned to manage that over time. The thing about me is I love to ask questions and get to know people through their thought process. I get to learn why they make certain decisions in life, how they manage to gain clarity and pivot their way to success. I don't know if it's an introvert's thing, but I genuinely love to analyze people through their thought patterns. Being an introvert, there were times I felt pressured to share something, especially when people get comfortable with me really fast and start sharing about their deeply personal stuffs. If I'm being honest, I genuinely felt a sense of empathy for what they were going through, but at the same time, I don't feel ready to share anything personal about myself to people I just met. As much as I want to relate to them in the best way possible, I need time to recalibrate my thoughts and trust that both of us are ready to hold space for one another, particularly if we're in a group setting. Because let's be honest, not everyone can be trusted and not everyone has your best interests at heart. In order to prevent myself from being stuck in conversations that don't resonate with me, I have found a solution to address that. And that is, I no longer put myself in situations where there is a possibility to overshare to keep the conversation going. I also stopped trying to fill the gaps in conversation and just allow silence to take over instead of trying to fix it. But most of the time, I would step away whenever I feel overwhelmed or disconnected. Trust me, there is no shame in hiding in a public bathroom for 10 to 15 minutes just to avoid having conversations that are draining your energy. Not long ago, I did that because I just couldn't tolerate small talk any longer than 5 minutes. It's shallow, boring, and pointless. There is nothing of value that I can contribute to a meaningless conversation. Let's be real, in every single event I go to, everyone starts off with an introduction of themselves, and it usually takes 60 seconds to say your name, what you do, and why you're here. I may probably get a lot of hate for saying this, but anything that's not related to improving your life or the lives of others is just a waste of time. Don't get me wrong, I enjoy having deep, stimulating conversations with people when their work is meaningful to them and lives are positively impacted through their work. In today's world where everyone seems so comfortable with meeting new people at events and becoming friends immediately after, it makes me feel weird when I don't operate the same way. I don't talk to people for the sake of talking. I don't meet people for the sake of meeting them. If I agree to meet someone, it means that I've set an intention to show up as my best self and add value to their lives. For instance, I'll check in on them if they're going through a hard time or offer emotional support if they're going through a breakup. I will always think of a way to make them feel better. So before I agree to meet someone, I had to ensure that I have the mental and emotional capacity to hold space for them. If I know that today is one of those days where I don't feel good mentally or emotionally, I won't show up for the sake of showing up. I have to be considerate for the person I'm meeting because no one likes to be around negative people. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that you can't be miserable around your friends because we are all humans and our emotions are valid, but you can't keep showing up with negativity. At some point, you have to learn to regulate your own emotions by yourself. Everyone has their own struggles, so you can't dump your negativity on someone else just because they're your family or friends. Being an INFJ, I am selectively sociable. I'm also very picky when it comes to events because I know that most of the conversations are superficial, especially when some people are there just because they have nothing better to do. Here's the thing about small talk. People love to talk about what they do and complain about their work these days, but there is more to life than that. Your clarity, your direction, your happiness, and your purpose are what truly matters. Sharing about our well-being is what connects us as humans, and I think we often forget that because the hustle culture is so deeply ingrained in our modern world. Unfortunately, most people don't prioritize the importance of well-being anymore. Look, there's nothing wrong with pursuing a high-paying job that you aren't happy with, but serves you in this stage of life where you're in need of finances to pay your rent or mortgage. But very often, what happens next is you would slowly convince yourself that your happiness don't matter as much as money. You're willing to trade your happiness with money as long as your bills are being paid. Over time, the job that once made you secure makes you feel empty. The truth is, being an introvert has changed the way I see life and people through the lens of alignment and intentionality. I enjoy observing the world around me rather than participating in it. These days, I prefer to go for events that support a meaningful cause, as I will be associated with people who are likely to share the same values as me, such as having genuine compassion and empathy for others. At the end of the day, everything I do have to be intentional. Is this worth my time? Is this worth my energy? Is this bringing me joy? If the answer is no, I won't do it. Previously, there were times I tried to get myself out of my comfort zone by going for drinks and pool parties, but I end up coming home feeling more drained than my Pilates class. Over the years, I became so used to spending time alone that being by myself feels oddly satisfying and comforting, almost like I'm my own best friend. As of today, I have less than 3 friends I can count on, and I'm okay with that. Back then, I did not filter my circle, and there were plenty of friendship drama with some people I didn't expect, because those friendships were formed in school that I thought would last forever. Being an introvert, I'm highly selective with my energy. I tend to invest heavily in my close circle, so I rarely give up on people. But this loyalty can sometimes make it hard to walk away from connections that drain me. So before I give up on anyone, I always make sure that I really try my best. I always give more chances than I should, and I always try to seek for understanding in their actions. That way, when I know I give up, I know I'm done for good, and no one can act surprised when they don't hear from me again. Thank you for watching, and click to subscribe if you enjoy my content. Bye!